Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Canada once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel quite a few times before. So I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, a few different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're most definitely best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have had from this brewery before, and it's one that I know they can do very well, and it's also one of their latest releases here in Hong Kong. And it's been a wee while actually since I've had one of these from them. I think the last one I filmed was back in about September or so, according to my brewery notes archive that I have. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to the province of Quebec over in Canada. We're going to go to the city of Montreal, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Messorem Bractorium. So this particular beer is called Fracturation. It comes in at 9.1% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this one has Citra, Victoria's Secret, Simcoe, and also a little bit of lactose in it. And I think this might well be the first one I've had from these guys, at least knowingly, that has lactose in it. So I'm curious to see how this one differs from the ones that we've had in the past. But yeah, these guys are one of the really well-respected Quebecois, Canadian craft breweries at the moment, doing some really, really good hazy IPAs. There's a lot of really good breweries now popping up in sort of the southern part of Quebec and the southern part of Ontario, from what I gather, and we've been reviewing some of these on the channel for you over the last little while. And if you want to keep more up to date with those, of course, do check out the likes of Redbeard and all those guys over in Canada who are doing beer reviews as well. Some really great channels out there. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. The Fracturation from Messorem Bractorium, a 9.1% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Messorem Bractorium before, and we will no doubt do more reviews from these guys at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Canadian playlist along with a number of other things. That's been added to whenever I get the opportunity, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's get on to the brewery notes then before we open up the beer. So Messorem Bractorium, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Montreal and Quebec, and the three main men behind the company are Marc-André Fillon, Sébastien Chaput, and also Vincent Menard. And these guys met in the underground music scene in the city during the early 2000s. So Sébastien is a guitarist and plays for the metal band Iron Dissonance, who've played all over the world, but more recently he studied business management and finance, and he's the one taking care of the business side of the company. Vincent was the drummer for another metal band called Last Felony, and he was an avid homebrewer for years before he went to study brewing formally, and then he interned at Oval Brewing and Pit Caribou before going to work for Les Trois Mousquetaires for 2 years, and he now takes care of the brewing side of Messorem Bractorium. Marc-André, on the other hand, was the singer of Orphans in Coma and Here Comes the Hurricane, but more recently has been rapping with La Carabine. But he studied design and marketing and was working in the field professionally after that, and he's the man behind the branding and artwork of Messorem. But back in 2015, the three guys would meet every Friday as part of a larger group of friends to do beer tastings and try rare beers from all across the world. But this got them wondering about how they could satisfy their desire for, such big, bold beers without having to bring back only very small amounts. And this got them talking about founding their own microbrewery. So Marc-André's father, Christian, was really impressed by the group's tenacity at trying to get this project off the ground. And he spoke to his friend Francois Garot, who actually helped the company, he helped them find their current home by Lachine Canal on Pitt Street. And Christian had worked in pharma while Francois had been a professor of mathematics and also worked a little bit in real estate on the side as well. But the two men joined the company as partners, and they've also been instrumental in helping get it off the ground. But the name Messorem Bractorium is taken from Latin, and it translates into English as the Brewery of the Reaper, hence why their symbol is the Reaper, and they've got all these kind of like death-related themes. But they opened their doors to the public in 2019, August 2019, and they've got the tap room on site with a terrace and capacity for 250 people, and they also collaborate with Mitch Daly, who run the kitchen and serve all sorts of dishes. Over the years, the brewery have of course become very well known for their kind of New England hazy IPAs. Their sour beers are also supposed to be very good, but it's mainly the IPAs that we're getting here in Hong Kong. But as of February 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 670 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Messorem Bractorium for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at this beer itself. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is kind of similar to what we've seen from Messorem in the past. You can see the broken bones there, hence the name Fracturation, which you'll see on the back there, and there you can also see the Reaper kind of staring at you, which is quite nice. Plain silver top on the can there. This one is 473 milliliters, one American pint. But yeah, this one is hopped with Citra Cryo, Victoria's Secret, Simcoe Cryo, and it also has a bit of lactose in it. So these hops we all know quite well. Citra, 14% alpha acid American. It's going to give you that lovely big juicy kind of mango-y note and quite a little bit of the lemon-limey character in a New England IPA. Victoria's Secret, if I remember rightly, is about 12% alpha acid. It's Australian, and it gives you quite a lot of like passion fruit, but also a wee bit of like kind of peachy and mango-y type quality as well. Quite a bit of pineapple too. Simcoe is American, 12% alpha acid, and that gives you mainly a kind of soft passion fruity character. But like I said earlier, this one I think is the first Messorem beer that I've had that has specifically had lactose in it, so that's quite interesting too. But yeah, I don't think we need to say anything more about the artwork or the appearance of the beer. As I said, 473 mils, 1 American pint. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see how we go. A 9.1% New England hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. And you know, as I say, Messorem are very, very well respected in Canada, and you know, kind of further afield actually when it comes to these beers as well. Oh, a little bit of sedimentation in this one actually. This one might be a little bit older, so this could be interesting too. I can't actually see. It says 11/11/2024. I'm guessing that's when it was canned. So this can at the time of drinking is about 3 months old. So this will be interesting because the other ones I've always drank, you know, really pretty damn fresh. It's always a measure of a good brewery if their beers can last a few months, but you know, IPAs, especially the hazy IPAs, are a little bit more kind of delicate, if you like. But this one's been refrigerated, so it should be absolutely fine. But yeah, you can see with this one, when we've poured it out, we've poured about 80% of the can out. It's got about a 2/3, 3/4 finger of quite a bumpy, I would say, cream-coloured head. Just bring it up to the camera so you can see that. Looks pretty nice. You can see at the bottom of the glass there, I'm not sure how well that's going to show up. There are little bits of sediment particle floating around in this one, but of course it's all natural. It should be absolutely fine. But colour-wise, this one I would say is quite akin to like a peach juice, or a kind of mixed tropical fruit juice of some description. I always like comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that really is just what the appearance reminds me of. But yeah, this one I think should be quite interesting. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. but you don't often have to care about that with the different types of IPAs, only really fruit IPAs to be honest with you. But yeah, the head on this one is fading away to be a kind of more thin foamy layer there. You've got a nice ring around the edge of the glass. In terms of the level of haziness in this one, it's kind of what you'd expect from a sort of 9%er. Remember, the haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. But you can see if I put my hand behind it, it's pretty damn opaque. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, but it certainly does give you a little bit of that. So yeah, nothing else we really need to say about the appearance of this beer, I would say. Let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma then. That is what I'm very, very curious about. Yeah, very soft, very juicy, and as you would expect, very, very tropical leaning. So yeah, it's very soft tropical leaning, this one actually. But it gives you everything you would want from the style actually. And if you take it in a bit more deeply, you do get a nice little bit of that kind of floral aromaticity. I wonder if this one's going to be a little bit more bitter than some of the other Messorems we've had in the past, but that it could well be just that it's a little bit older, right enough. But yeah, aroma-wise, this one is absolutely great. So as I've often said in my New England reviews, there are 6 different elements to think about with the malty and yeasty side of these beers. You have the kind of farmhousey and yeasty type character, and sometimes a little bit of rye kind of graininess, rye bready graininess. Those 2 elements are a bit more common in New England brewed New England IPAs, but as the style has evolved and gone to other places, we're more thinking about wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also a little bit of sweetness in there. This one is most definitely leaning toward the kind of barley malt side of things. There is a wee bit of that yeastiness in there, and yeah, the oats and the wheat. But you have to remember that oats and wheat have different characteristics depending on where they're from. For me, North American oats are a little bit kind of drier and more porridgey compared to the more creamy European oats. American wheat is also a little bit kind of smoother, I would say, whereas you know, European wheat is a little bit more kind of bitey. So with this one, for me, I'm getting quite a little bit of wheat out of this, also getting some of the nice oaty notes in there as well, and also just a wee bit of the kind of yeasty character as well. So a bit of, you know, it's leaning as well toward that kind of barley malt bready side of things. So I always like just seeing where the different nuances are, because quite often you'll find that certain breweries will lean to certain places, if you like, on the kind of IPA spectrum, if we can call it that. But yeah, the backbone of this beer, you have that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there, absolutely. Little hints of like woody character underneath, cracker as well, Jacob's cream cracker. This one has a little touch of like a wholemeal brown bready note to it. Yeah, it's got a little touch of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character to it, and but apart from that, it's all about the white bread. You can smell that lovely, fresh, fluffy white bread in there. At the back of the nose, you've got a nice wee bit of, at the back of the nose, you've got a little bit of a more wheaty, bitey character to the beer as well. And then on top of that, you've got some really nice, oaty notes in there. As I've often said, oats in a New England IPA are a fairly decent indicator of how fresh your beer is. Essentially, the fresher the beer is, the creamier they are, the older it is, the drier they are. American oats, or North American oats I should say, behave a little bit differently. You can smell a little bit of the dryness kind of coming through with this one, but it still has that wee bit of creaminess actually. I think the North American oats are a bit better at retaining their creaminess than the European oats are in these beers. In terms of sweetness in this one, there's a little bit of like McVitie's Digestive Biscuit, a wee bit of that Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotchy sort of thing. The colour of this one suggests it could have like a little bit of carapils or something like that in it, just to give you a wee bit of sweetness, and usually that's good to cover the alcohol that little bit. But yeah, this one isn't overly sweet. There's a bit of Werther's Original, like I say, and a wee bit of McVitie's Digestive Biscuit as well. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together in this one, I think, is very, very nice. The malty side of this one is really good. The yeasty side of this beer, so the yeasty character at the back of the nose, for me, I'd say it's a mix of like white bready and crackery almost. Maybe a very slightly like a kind of farmhousey bread. So there's a wee bit of that farmhousey bread coming out of this one. And you've also got that wee bit of like, yeah, crackery note to it as well. So yeah, the yeastiness at the back of the nose is there, and you do get a wee bit more wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose too, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, all in all, the malt base isn't doing anything particularly surprising, but it is quite nicely done. I'm curious to see how this kind of comes out in the flavour. So, on the hoppy side of things then, like I said earlier, I kind of inferred rather than said, this beer has a little bit more of a kind of, it's got a wee bit more of a pungency to its green component, and that makes me wonder if it's going to be a little bit more bitter. So remember, when it comes to IPAs, you have 3 different types of hoppings that you can do. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness, of course, and a deeper, danker green component. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil, and that one's mainly that gives you mainly flavour and aroma, but a little touch of bitterness, as I say, and it gives you a very bright green component. Dry hopping takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma, and again, it gives you a very bright green component. New England IPAs rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're softer and more juicy. West Coast IPAs use all 3 types, which is why they're deeper, danker, and kind of more oily, I would say. But yeah, this beer does have a wee bit more of a pungency to it. We also have to take into account that there's a bit of cryo in here, so that's going to oil. It's going to make your green component really quite smooth and really quite oily. We'll probably detect that in the actual tasting section of the video. But yeah, green component wise, for me, this one, it's really leaning toward that floral side of things, but you certainly can get that bit of oiliness out of it. So there's a wee touch of earthiness in there, lovely big floral aromaticity, and then yeah, you also have like there's that lovely big floral aromaticity. Then yeah, you've got the nice kind of grassy zestiness coming out of this one too. So yeah, it's kind of giving you everything you'd want in terms of green component. There's nothing overly surprising about that. So let's round off our aroma section then with a wee look at the fruity side of things. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of the beer is the fruity side of this beer, I'd say it's very soft and tropically. There's a bit of peach in there. There's lots and lots of juicy mango, if you like. So yes, there's peach in there. There's lots of juicy mango. There's passion fruit. I think the mango and the peach are the most prominent ones. So yeah, peach, juicy mango, there's passion fruit underneath, bit of pineapple. And then yeah, you've got wee hints of like almost, I do get a little bit of gooseberry out of it and a wee touch of the lemon lime from the, that's going to be from the Citra. But yeah, I think the mango and the peach are most prominent, and that makes sense when you've got Citra and Victoria's Secret involved. Simcoe's maybe kind of sitting back a wee bit and acting as the backbone of the beer. But all in all, aroma-wise, this one, lovely, but nothing surprising, which is, we expect consistency from Messorem, so nothing to complain about there. But yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time that we try this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Fracturation, a 9.1% New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Messorem Bractorium in Montreal, Quebec, over in Canada. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Once again, really, really damn solid beer from these guys. Yeah. Wouldn't expect any less. We're getting the bigger bits of sediment now, but as I say, it's all natural. Contributes to the flavour of the beer. Any left? Don't want to waste anything, of course. But yeah, this beer is going to be pretty. This beer is pretty damn good, as you would expect from these guys. So yeah, where do we start with this then? It has a bit more wheaty bitiness to it, and the green component does have a fair bit of kind of resonance, if we can call it that. And I was kind of expecting that from the aroma, in all honesty. but quite an oily and slightly more citrusy leaning character to it as well. So I would say that this one varies a little bit, or diverges a wee bit, I should say, from its from the aroma, in fairness. But yeah, I do like how that goes together. Yeah, it's good. It's good. So let's start on the middle third of the palate then, as we always do. Middle third there. The backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh, white bready bread crust there. So you've got that lovely kind of fresh, white bready bread crust forming the backbone of the beer. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you do get a wee touch of the cracker coming out of a wee touch of the woodiness coming out of this one, and you can feel the layer of cracker on top of that bread crust, particularly the further you go into the aftertaste. So yeah, on top of that, there is a slight layer of like a more kind of grainy wholemeal brown bread, but yeah, there's not too much. Yeah, not too much in that regard. But yeah, definitely a little touch of a more grainy wholemeal brown bready character coming out of this beer. But yeah, we also have the white. The bread in this one really is dominated by the white bread note. So above the kind of brown bready character, you can feel that more light, airy, fluffy white bready character as well. And then above that, you get the more dense wheaty note coming out of this one. You get that dense wheaty white bread, and it's actually interesting because I'm finding the wheat in this beer is a little bit more bitey. Maybe they used some German malts in this, some German wheat. Be interesting to know. But yeah, there is a wee bit more wheaty bitiness to this beer. And then on top of all of that, you can feel sort of down the middle line of your palate, you feel that oaty creaminess, and as you move out toward the edges of that middle third of your palate, you of course start to get the kind of slightly drier parts of the oaty side of the beer. So yeah, for me, this one, in the dead centre of your palate, it's 9.1%, you are expecting a wee bit of booziness out of this beer. So yeah, in the middle of your palate with this one, you get that little circle there where the booziness comes out. And so it's a bit of a kind of concentrated mix of like a concentrated biscuit and like Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch. And as you move out from that a wee bit, it's a little bit more, yeah, kind of Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch, and then a wee bit of biscuit behind it as well. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really very, very nice. That middle third of your palate in this one is great. So yeah, for me, I don't know if there's really anything else to say about that middle third of the palate, but you really do get quite a bit of green component out of this one, and quite a bit of wheaty bitiness into the aftertaste. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, as I've said, generally speaking, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back, and between the middle and back third of your palate, you're going to get very similar flavours just coming out at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that little bit of bready build-up in there. So you've got a wee bit of brown bread in the base, then the fluffier white bread on top, and the more bitey wheat above that. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you've got the nice white bready bread crust in there. It feels a little bit drier. You've got the kind of crackery notes above it. The brown bready layer is a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. Then the white bready layer above that's a little bit lighter and taller and more airy. But then yeah, the wheaty character just creeps over the top of that, and pardon me, it really does show you that little bit of that real kind of wheaty bitiness. And above everything else there on that back third of your palate, you have the yeasty side of this beer coming out. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice. Yeah, so the yeasty side of this beer then, at its core, it feels like it's a bit of a sweeter wholemeal brown bread. Then round the edges, it's like a more dense white bread, still quite sweet. And then there's just a wee bit of like a bread crusty note around the very edge of that as well. So those are all quite interesting things with the beer. It's like the yeastiness actually has a fair little bit of sweetness to it, but the malt base has a bit of kind of wheaty bitiness as well. But yeah, interesting stuff. And definitely the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together. So yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of things with this beer, green component first. In the back corners of the palate, there is a fair little touch of earthiness in there, but I am finding that along the sides of the palate there's quite a little bit of bitterness there. It's maybe even a little touch kind of piney. I'm wondering how much of that is due to the age of the beer, if the bitterness is kind of increased as the beer's just got that little bit older. Because like I say, this one is about 3 months old actually, compared to the couple of weeks old that I would normally drink these beers. So yeah, as you come further forward along the sides of your palate with this one, it's got a wee bit of pine resin on the sides of the tongue, but as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, it's got a little bit more of a kind of floral aromaticity, and round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more sort of grassy and things like that. So yeah, it's good. It's interesting stuff. And I would say the kind of cryo oil with this one is sort of smoothing it all out, in honesty. So yeah, as I say, I like how this I like how all of that pieces together in this beer. I think it is really really nice done. The green component is quite bitter in the beginning when you take the beer in, but it just mellows out and smoothens out really, really nicely. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the fruity side of things then, the front third of your palate. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, and then the more dense white bready character from the wheat sitting above that. It's a wee bit bitey as well, but the base of that front third of your palate again, the bread crust, the cracker, brown bread, the white bread, the wheat, and a bit of the oats. You see the smoother side of the oats there, but then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's focus on that fruity side of things now. Yeah, the fruity side of this beer, it has a wee bit of citric intensity when you take it in, but it really kind of mellows out and gives you the soft tropical notes in the fruit. So if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, it's peach on the top, absolutely, and underneath that you've got really juicy mango coming out of this one, and the base of that, the back half of that front third of your tongue, is passion fruit. It's the Simcoe. The peach and the mango are going to come from your Victoria's Secret and from your Citra in this one. But yeah, it's like the Simcoe is kind of providing the backbone. You get passion fruit all the way with this beer, but as you move to the middle of that front third of your palate, you're maybe getting a wee bit of a more, yeah, you're getting a little bit of a more, how would you say? There's definitely a wee bit of a more kind of pineapple-y note coming out of this one, and that lingers into the aftertaste too, but definitely behind the front tip of your tongue you can feel the Citra showing its, you can really feel the Citra showing its kind of lemony limey type qualities. That really lingers into the aftertaste too, along with the wheaty bitiness and the kind of green component. So yeah, that's very, very apparent in this particular beer. So yeah, I like how all of that kind of pieces together, in fact. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we really need to say about the flavour profile of this one then. I think we can round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, I would say that this beer maybe top end to mid-bodied, bottom end to full-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth in this one. It's actually a bit more of an oily and slick New England double IPA, this one. The IBU I think has got to be a bit higher on this one. This one's maybe got to be about 60 or 70 IBU, something like that. It does have a wee bit of lingering bitterness to it. The malt base, as we said, it's a bit dry underneath, a bit smooth in the middle. You've got a drier kind of sweetness and creaminess sitting on top of it. And then, yeah, you've got that lovely kind of juicy fruitiness that lingers into this one in the aftertaste as well. Very tropical, but with a wee bit of citrusy bite to it as well. All in all, a very interesting New England double, this one, because it's more bitter and slightly more citrusy leaning and wheaty and bitey compared to some of the other Messerems that I remember having in the past. But I'd be curious to know how much of that is due to the fact that this one is a couple of weeks older than what we normally drink from Messerem. But regardless, very, very happy with it, and it's absolutely worth trying. So I think we can leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Messorem Bractorium as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the fairly future. But yeah, the Fracturation 9.1% New England Hazy Pure Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Messorem Bractorium in Quebec, Montreal, Quebec, over in Canada. Until the next time, Slange it, Skull, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you all later. Ciao just now.